Hello and welcome to Retro Gaming Banter. In this video we will be doing a retro restore on a Commodore 64C computer. I will be finding out why it's not powering on, fixing any issues, cleaning it all up and retrobrighting it back to closer to its original light beige colouring. Roll VT, Errol. I got this Commodore 64C off eBay a few weeks ago and it was listed as not powering on. The seller tried it with a working power supply and nothing was happening. They did mention that the power LED was missing, but this was not related as nothing was displaying on screen. It looks like the power LED space has also been drilled out to fit a round bulb instead of the flat bulb which was used in this model. No idea why. So let's start by opening it up and check for any visible damage. This is a later model Commodore 64C which does away with the screws holding the case together. Instead there are 3 clips on the bottom which can be pushed in to release the case. The top half of the case is connected to the bottom half via the keyboard cables and normally the power LED, which is of course missing on this one. There's 7 screws holding the board to the case that need removing. The board can now be lifted out and we can take a closer look at it. The capacitors all look okay and none are swollen or busted. The fuse also looks to be fine and not broken. The power switch does look a bit gunked up. It's not that uncommon for these to be the issue of not switching properly and causing it not to power up. I will first try some contact cleaner on the switch and see if that removes any debris to make a better contact when switching on. So I spray some in and let it work for a short while and then brush out any loose debris. Then I flick the switch plenty of times to loosen anything up inside and brush and blow it again. I then check over the socketed chips just to see if any are loose. Yeah, they all seem to be secure. I will give the board a quick spray with some IPA and dust over with an anti-static brush. I want to see if the issue was the switch before doing anything else, so let's get connected back up for a quick test. Power on and a quick wave for me for good luck, and as you can see now power's on. Yeah, this was an easy fix by the look of it. Let's run the dead test cart via the Kung Fu Flash and see if there's any issues. I let it run for about 15 minutes and there were no failures. The C64C will however require further testing, but everything is looking good so far. Let's get on with the retro restore. Starting with the case, it's in OK condition. There's a fair bit of yellowing all over and just below the grill there's darker yellowing. There's that drill hole where the flat LED used to go, but otherwise no major issues. The bottom half of the case also has some yellowing, but nothing Retrobrighting can't fix. Onto the keyboard. The keys are yellowed, naturally more at the top than the bottom, and under the keys I can see there's a nice layer of filth that will need to go, so let's get started on that. As always, use a key puller when removing keys from old keyboards. It makes life much easier, and in the case of a Commodore 64 keyboard, it reduces the chance of breaking plungers. The spacebar has a larger spring than the other keys, so keep that separate from the others. Cleaning the keys is straightforward. You just need some warm water, not too hot or you could melt the keys, and a squirt of fairy liquid. Chuck all the keys in and let them soak for 30 minutes or so. Here's some ASMR for the fans. While they are soaking, I can get on with cleaning the keyboard, which is full of grime. I start by cleaning all the loose debris with a brush. You can already see how much has come off. I then spray some IPA, let that work in for a bit, and then brush off the majority of the gunk. I then use some cotton pads to get in between the plungers for any stubborn dirt. As you can see, there's still quite a bit left. Now onto the case. Using some warm water and a sponge, I go over all the case to remove any surface dirt. The case itself is not that dirty, just a bit yellow. There's a few scuffs here and there which I will leave alone, as the case is not perfect looking due to the great big hole in it. I repeat the process for the bottom half of the case, and they're both ready to Retrobright. Back to the keys, which have been soaking for 45 minutes or so. The keys are now clean, but as you can see that comparing the top and bottom halves, they are still quite yellow. I won't bore you with drying off the rest of the keys. You can watch my Atari ST video for the full Retrobrighting process to save repeating it here again. For the keys, I want to try dipping them in peroxide instead of brushing the keys like I normally do. I'm hoping that this will give a more even and thicker coating. It seems to be better dipping them. As I brushed one, you can see that it's not covering as well or as thickly coated, so I'll continue with dunking the keys. The cardboard is then wrapped with cling film and held in place with some tape. Then it's off to the Retrobrighting box for several hours. Some hours later, the keys are ready and they go back into some warm water to be rinsed off and dried. The keys are looking much better than before, and to celebrate is some more ASMR. And now onto the case. I pour the peroxide over and then kind of dab the brush rather than using strokes so it does not thin the cream too much. I'm always trying to improve the process, and I think this should also help get better results with a thicker layer of cream. It's then wrapped up in cling film and into the Retrobrighting box. I repeat the process for the bottom half of the case. After each one is finished, I simply rinse it off with some water. I didn't bother filming that as it's boring. So while the cases were in the box, I carried on with the keyboard by putting all the keys back on. I did manage to put a key back in the wrong place, so I had to remove it, and I did try without a key puller, which I failed at. So yeah, just use a key puller. But the keys are now looking great. With that done, I can now move on to the board. I forgot to mention there is some kind of green substance on the cassette tape edge connector. I thought at first it was a broken contact and showing the board underneath, but it is raised above the contacts. Then after taking this photo, I noticed that there was some solder towards the bottom of the contact, as well as some dodgy looking solder joints. It could be a repair by a previous owner. I was now thinking that it could be conductive ink. I've never tried it myself, so I'm not sure what it's like exactly, but I think it could be this. Let me know in the comments if you have any suggestions. Anyway, I get on with cleaning the contacts up with some contact cleaner and a cotton bud. For the mysterious green blob, I wanted to scrape it down a bit so it's at least even with the contact. Using a scalpel, I scrape and cut a bit away just to even it out. I will be testing this later, and if there's issues, I think I will just flow some solder over the contact, which should fix it. I then continue with cleaning the rest of the contacts and all of the ports on the board. For the moment, that is everything I can do, so let's get it all put back together for some testing. I ordered a replacement power LED and some heat sinks to put on the SID, CPU and VIC chips, which I will do after testing. Before fitting the power LED to the case, let's check it's working whilst I test everything else. Powering on the C64C shows that the power LED is working, which is great news, as I was wondering why it was missing and a hole drilled in the case. I guess we will never know. I'll switch over to the capture card and test the user ports, starting with the cassette tape port, which had the green blob. I'm using a Tape Cart SD, which is a cassette tape emulator, loading software from a SD card. It loads the browser program, which is a good sign, and loading up a TCRT file seems to be working great as well. I forgot to plug in the joystick, but we can at least confirm that the port is working and there's no damage that can't be fixed. Now on to the cartridge port. I know this is already working as I tried the dead test cart earlier, but I will quickly try it with a game and a joystick plugged in. Chase HQ loads just fine, and yeah, the joystick's working as well. And now on to the disk drive port, which I can test with my Pi 1541 disk drive emulator. It emulates a 1541 disk drive using a Raspberry Pi 3. As it emulates the 1541 at hardware level, it also means it takes a bleeding age to load up. But yeah, the disk drive port is working just fine as well. Now all the testing is done, we can finish up by putting the heat sinks on. I forgot to mention that I got these and the LED from retrobrighting.co.uk. They stock loads of spare parts for various retro computers. The heatsink comes with instructions and a wipe to clean the chip surface before sticking the heatsinks on. You simply peel off the blue sticker and stick them on top of the respective chips. They are a little larger than the chips, so you don't have to be dead on accurate. And now back to the power LED. I'm using hot glue to hold it securely in place. I do have some different coloured glue sticks, but the white one is a bit too bright and might look weird, so I decided against it and stick with a clear one. It just needs a bit around the LED just to keep it in place. And I think that's everything done. Let's take a quick look before and after. It was not powering on due to an issue with the power switch. The case was missing the power LED and was yellowed, with it being more noticeable below the grille, and the keys themselves were also quite yellow. Now we have a fully working Commodore 64C with a much nicer looking case and keyboard, and of course a power LED. That wraps up this retro restore video. I hope you have enjoyed it, or at least found it useful if planning to fix up your own. If you did, please like and subscribe, as it really helps to grow this channel. Thanks for watching, and I hope to see you in the next video.